course, YouTube channel Camille121. All right. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we have everything where we need it to be. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm sharing this to another page. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening on all the different platforms. Come on in, come on in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just share this on my other platform. All right, everyone. This is Naja Young, and I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. What's up, Indie Glow? What's up, bro? Glad to see you all. Glad to see you all here. If you're here, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, a wave, something. Let me know you're in the house. We're going to give other people, our slow pokes, a little bit of time to come on in. And what's up, bro? So come on in. Tonight, we're going to be discussing Angel Heart. And so what we're going to do for the month of October, since it is Hoodoo Heritage Month and it's also the month of Halloween, we're going to be looking at the way that African spirituality is portrayed in Hollywood. And most of these films are horror films, suspense, or thrillers. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about the film Angel Heart. Okay. This film came out in 1987 and starred Mickey Rourke, Robert Deniro, and Lisa Bonet. All right. So let's go ahead and come on in. We're going to give people a couple more seconds to get in here before we really get to it, because I got some things I need to say. And I sincerely hope that you all watch the film. We've been pushing this out on multiple platforms. Please watch the film. Come on and comment. If you miss it, I will have it up on platforms for you to go ahead to watch and share it and like it. Okay. And if you're not subscribed to my channels or to my other platforms, please do so now. All right. So here's what I want us to do is I want you all to go ahead. If you're in here, go ahead, say hello, post a comment, something like that. Let me know that you're in here. We're going to be talking about the film Angel Heart. So the film was released in 1987, as I stated. Now, I consider it to be a horror film, but some people may actually consider the film to be what is called film noir. So what we're going to talk about is genres. That means type of. It's just a French word that means type of, but that's how we describe the type of film that we may view or when we're trying to categorize something. What's up, Brandon Javon? I'm glad that you are here because I might have to add you to the stream, bro. I'll see how I can do that, but I will add you. Brandon is one of my erudite students who is also a cinephile and a horror expert. So I may want to add him onto this. You can also join on other platforms, Instagram. You can also join me on YouTube and Facebook Live. So let's go ahead and get into it because I don't want to hold us up too much in the evening. Too much is going on in the world. We got strikes. I got a polluted cloud not too far from my house in Georgia. We got people are still trying to recover from Hurricane Helene. So this too much. Just too much. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. So Angel Heart, the film, like I said, stars Mickey Rourke. It stars Mickey Rourke, and Mickey Rourke stars as the detective Harry Angel or Harold A. Angel. I'm sorry, Harold. Harold R. Angel, right? And so he's the protagonist of the film, and he is a private detective. Film noir, that genre these are generally detective stories. When we think about this category of film, it is going to be a detective story. And it usually involves some sort of femme fatale in the film that sort of puts this detective in a series of predicaments that almost gets him murdered. Okay. And so when we think about this film in context with that category description, Angel Heart fits perfectly. Instead of us having a femme fatale, what we have is we have Louis Cypher. Louis Cypher is, of course, Lucifer, played by Robert De Niro. Okay. As far as roles by Robert De Niro, it's a departure from what we normally see De Niro play, because De Niro generally plays, um, if we're being real, tough guys, gangsters, and he's known for that type of thing. In this film, he plays a tough guy. He plays Sir Lucifer. Um, hey, drum woman, it's so good to see you, Auntie. Um, so he plays this character, Lucifer, Louis Cypher. And of course, when you first see the film, you don't necessarily get that it's a play on the word Lucifer. And so, for those of you who don't know who Lucifer is, in the Bible, Lucifer is a fallen angel. Okay. And he was said to be God's most beautiful angel. Okay. It's the morning glory. And he's a fallen angel. So, in the film, that's who Robert De Niro plays. Harold R. Angel, or Harry Angel, is a detective played by Mickey Rourke. He is hired by Louis Cypher to find a singer named Johnny Favorite. So I'm a person that believes that names are very significant when we watch films. Sometimes when I'm writing or doing something, the characters' names don't really mean a whole lot to me, but what is clear to me is that people have names. And in order for an audience to identify with a particular character, then you got to give them a name. Um, the work that I do when I'm writing a screenplay, I like to take my time and think about what is the name of my main character, my protagonist. In this case, the protagonist's name is Harry Angel. And before I get too deep in this, I do want to let you know that Angel Heart is based on an actual book. Okay, it's actually based on a book. We are not discussing the book because I didn't have time to read it, but I am that type of scholar that if I were to give a real lecture about this, your girl will have read the book and we would be doing a side-by-side comparison, okay, to see where the adaptation lies. I want to thank everybody who's joining us on all these different platforms, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. So again, if you have comments, feel free to jump in. Now, his name, Mickey Rourke's name in the film is Harry our Angel. Think about it. Harry our Angel. Okay, so if I think about it, Harold our Angel, that's his name. Harold, like hark the herald angels sing. His character, or the person he's trying to find in the film, is a former singer named Johnny Favorite. So Harold Angel. A coinky dink? I think not. No, that has to be significant. So throughout the course of this film, you're going to see the significance of names. So when we think about the name Harold, right, we think Harold, but if we think about it in terms of the song, let's say Hark the Herald Angels Sing. So Herald actually means an official messenger bringing news. What's up, Shannon? Good to see you, girl. So it's an official manager bringing news. And that's who this character is in the film. He's bringing news. The person he's bringing news to within this film is himself. Because in the film, spoiler alert, he discovers that he is the person that he is actually searching for, Johnny Favorite. The devil, Louis Cypher, played by Robert De Niro, has hired him to look for Johnny Favorite because Johnny Favorite owes him his soul. Okay. Now, one of the things I was struck by when I was watching the film is the cinematography. It is shot beautifully. And I didn't write down the cinematographer's name, but what I'm talking about when I talk about cinematography is how the film is actually shot. How each scene or each frame is actually filmed. Okay. So that means that if you were looking at a photograph and you know how you look at something, you say, oh, that's a good picture. It's that same concept when we're looking at a movie. That's a good picture. It's very powerful. It's artistic. The light molds someone's face beautifully. It evokes emotion. It evokes a certain feeling. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about cinematography. I'm talking about the way the picture is framed. I'm talking about the way that it is shot. Is it fast motion? Is it slow motion? Is it a very wide frame? Is it very narrow? Okay, I'm also talking about the lighting, the way the light falls over the actors, and does everything kind of jibe? Does it all go together? So it's beautifully shot. And as far as a film goes that was made in 1987 that I'm watching in 2024, and I saw this film maybe not when it came out, because in 87 I was about, let's just say I was younger. Okay. All right. Don't nobody need to know my exact age, but I was younger and I wasn't necessarily allowed to see it when it first came out, but I did see it not too far after it debuted. And it was controversial when this film came out. Angel Heart was controversial because in the film, Lisa Bonet plays a 17-year-old mixed race young woman. And Lisa at the time was 19 years old and was a star of The Cosby Show, the original Cosby Show. Okay, it came on NBC. We all knew her as this Denise Huxtable character, wholesome, a little weird, but really cool. And this just sort of wholesome character in a we see her in this family sitcom, and then now we see her in Angel Heart, which initially got it has an R rating, but at the time, the first cut of the film, I think, was actually given an X rating. So Shannon says the film is artistically beautiful and culturally problematic, almost in equal measures. I would have to agree. So we're going to get to that part, and we're going to talk about what makes this film problematic and what makes it work. But just on a cinematic point of view, the film is excellently shot. It definitely holds up to the 2024 standards. It's actually a very well acted film, very strong imagery. And there are lots of things that I do want to point out as it relates to African or even Black American spirituality that were sort of brought up in the film that I did find problematic in a lot of cases, but I also found it, I had to chuckle because I was like, oh, okay, give me your opinion much. Okay, heavy handed much. All right. Um, but I digress. Let's talk a little bit about this film. It starts off in New York City. It is set in 1955. One of the things I did kind of appreciate in this film was that it tried to be true to the time. And when I say true to the time, what I'm talking about is that America was highly segregated, highly segregated. Okay. And so in the film, you can see that segregation, but you also see evidence of white privilege because our character, Harold Angel, just sort of goes wherever he wants to go, which is white privilege in and of itself. And in the film, it was very clear that anyone that was Black could not go everywhere that they wanted to go. I appreciated that, seeing that in the film, because it made the film historically accurate in that way. Oftentimes, when I watch films about this sort of era within the context of America in particular, I find that there's a whitewashing of history. We're just going to glaze over that whole Jim Crow segregation era, and we're not going to talk about it. Okay. Especially if the film is not about segregation or the civil rights era. Then films set in 1955 or during prior to the civil rights era or anything else, they just sort of glaze over that fact that this was even going on in America. So in that way, this film is historically accurate in that way. There is a character in the film that appears to be an African American preacher. And the African American preacher, his name was Pastor John, and he had a church in Harlem. And this is where Johnny Favorite, or Harold Angel, played by Mickey Rourke, first goes to meet Louis Cypher, Lucifer, is in this building where this man has a church. It is not a traditional church, meaning it's not a traditional church setting, but it looks to be a building that has been rented out by this Pastor John. Now, Pastor John is a Black preacher, and he's talking about people supporting him, and that if you love him, you should get him a Rolls Royce. It very much reminds me of certain ministers during that time, such as Father Divine. So if you've never heard of Father Divine, look Father Divine up. Okay. And Father Divine was one of these preachers during that time that was sort of, and earlier, that was sort of thought of as what we would call a prosperity preacher nowadays, all about the money. Okay, he talked about the Lord, but it was more so about the money, and people were very critical of his followers in that his followers were often accused of really worshiping him instead of worshiping God, so to speak. So it's interesting that the film one of the opening scenes takes place at Pastor John's church, and that is where the devil has chosen to meet Harold, our angel. Okay. So I think it's definitely a critique of Pastor John and the Black church. And I say that because there aren't really many scenes that take place within the context of the film Angel Heart that take place within a white church. There is one, and I'm going to bring that up, but we're speaking comparatively at this moment. Okay. So you have this image of Pastor John, and he's talking about wealth and greed, and upstairs, sort of in another room, that's right, Brandon. Show how much you love God. Open your heart, open your wallets, open your purses. Okay. That's what actually Pastor John says in that. So upstairs is where he meets Lucifer. And Lucifer is sort of sitting apart from his lawyer on what looks like a small throne. Harry Angel walks past the room where it looks like there was a murder committed, and there's a woman, we can't see her face, scrubbing the walls. Okay. So we have this image of a greedy pastor, we have the image of violence, and we have the image of the devil. So it's this confluence, it's conflating Black spirituality with devil worship. That's what it is. It ends up conflating Black spirituality with devil worship. And this is Black Christianity is being conflated with devil worship, if you think about it in that way. Okay. So if we go further, when Harold Angel comes back to this place and he goes to the room where he met Lucifer, he opens up a closet, and in there is an altar. It's just an altar. We don't know what it's for at that moment, but you've got purple candles, you've got a stuffed monkey's head, an obscured statue of a saint. Okay. And you have an upside down cross with nails in it. So if we're talking about iconography, upside down crosses are generally ascribed to Satan worshipers, devil worshipers. And that's in Hollywood movies. Okay. I'm not a devil worshiper, so I can't tell you if that's for real or for not. But what I do know is whenever we watch a Hollywood film about the devil, the cross is always inverted. It's upside down. Okay. So in this film, you open this closet, you see this altar, this hidden altar with it looks like a Bible. It's got candles, upside down cross with nails in it, a stuffed monkey's head, a saint's statue there, and the face is obscured, um, and these purple candles. Okay. Now, I want to say this: when we're talking about iconography or symbology, right? When we think of these types of altars as I've described them, because that's what it appears to be, an altar of some sort, it doesn't look positive. It doesn't feel positive. Why? Well, it's got a stuffed monkey's head on it. That don't feel positive at all. Am I correct? Okay, so that doesn't feel positive. All right. Hey, here for you. What's up? Um, so, um, and if you have comments, put them in the comment section and we can definitely discuss them. And I want to thank you all for joining us. So when we think about that altar feels foreboding. It feels negative. Okay. One thing I know about humans is that when we don't understand something immediately, we immediately ascribe something negative to it, especially when it confronts or it upsets our sensibilities, myself included. If I go into a space and I see a stuffed monkey's head, immediately I'm on guard. What is this? Now, to be perfectly transparent, I'm a practitioner and was raised as in an African based spirituality, the traditional Yoruba spirituality. In Cuba, this spirituality has grown and is called Lukumi. Some people call it Isheshe, depending on how you practice. And I'm not going to go deep into that because this is not about me proselytizing. This is about me and us discussing how African spirituality is portrayed in films. And I do want to say this before I go deeper. It is not all the same. It's just not. It's not all the same. Okay. Voodoo and Ifa, there may be some similarities, not the same. Not the same. Okay. And the reason why I want to say that is because we have a tendency in the West, even as Black people who may be open to African spirituality or African traditional belief systems, lumping everything together. And what I don't want to do is lump everything together because that's not fair. And because we are way more complex than that. Yes? We are way more complex than that. It's like, okay, we know we have Christianity, right? But a Catholic, a Presbyterian, a Baptist, you all would say that we practice differently. Am I correct? Okay. And if a person is a part of an Abrahamic religion, that's Christianity, Judaism, even Islam. These are three different, separate, and distinct religions, even though there is some overlap. Okay, there is some overlap. Okay, so Abraham figures prominently in each of those religions, but these are three separate and distinct religions. I need you to think of traditional African spirituality and their derivatives as separate and distinct. And then we will begin to give it the respect and the reverence it is due. Yes? Okay, good. Now, when we look at this film, Angel Heart, you're going to have other sort of altars and things that you're going to see. One of them that figures prominently in my mind is when Lisa Bonet is at the graveyard and she goes to her mother's grave. Her mother's name is Evangeline Proudfoot. Okay. And at her grave, she had candles and she was bringing fresh bread over to place on her mother's grave. And if I'm not mistaken, there might have actually been a coconut there as well. I wrote it down because I'm a scholar, baby. We take notes. You know how we do. Okay. So there's a coconut, there's bread, and there's like candles there. Okay. And she's changing those things out, putting fresh bread down for her mother, removing the stale bread. Now, I will say this. We all know that in Western society and culture, America and different things like that, people do bring offerings to the graveyard. And you may not consider it an offering, but anytime you go clean off the grave of your loved one and you place fresh flowers there, you're placing that there to honor the memory of your loved one. If I'm wrong, please correct me. You may not consider it an offering, but at the very least, you're doing that to honor the memory of your loved one, right? You clean off that grave as a sign of respect. Yes, you might also bring their favorite drink, their favorite thing to smoke. You might bring other things up there as a token of respect and a sign of your love for them. And so it's very clear that's what Evangeline was doing, but she took it a step further. I think by changing out the food and putting out fresh bread, it's a fresh offering, just like, removing dead flowers. Now, in the film, they refer to Epiphany, that's Lisa Bonet's character, as a mambo. That's a priestess in voodoo. Okay. And when people think of voodoo, they think of, you have a tendency to think of Haiti, right? So voodoo is not just practiced in Haiti. And voodoo, Voodoo, is actually a bastardization of the term vaudou. Okay. And vaudou is a traditional belief system that comes out of Benin, which used to be called Dahomey. Okay, Benin, West Africa. All right. And like I said, if I'm saying something incorrect, by all means, correct me. Okay. We are not here to argue. We're not here to debate semantics or anything like that. We're talking about how Hollywood actually portrays African-based spiritual systems. Okay. So African-based spiritual systems is going to encompass voodoo, just like it's going to encompass Lukumi, Santeria, Ifa. It's going to encompass a lot of these different religions, Candomblé, Palo, all of those things, okay? Because the origin, the root is in Africa, all right? Now, in the film, they say that she's a voodoo priestess, a mambo. Okay. However, looking at the film, it's just a mishmash of all kind of stuff in there. Like I said, I described the altar that was there. Then you sort of run into a white woman who also, what they say, practice the dark arts. And they describe that she practices the dark arts. Well, in the film, she was doing somebody's star chart. That's astrology. And they talked about her being a palm. She also read his palm, Mickey Rourke's palm. And she did tarot. They would talk about her being a tarot card reader and saying that this white woman, Margaret, was reading tarot before she could actually read properly as a little girl. And all of those things, they conflated with dark arts in the film. So there was no separation of these things, saying that these things were different practices, come out of different belief systems, all of these things, because doing a star chart, tarot cards, and palm reading have nothing to do, and I said it, I'm going on the record here, have absolutely nothing to do with traditional African spirituality. They just don't. They're different. These are different methods of divination that come from different systems, and not all of them are African. So if you are ever going to a person who is, let's say, an African priestess in some religion, a mambo, actually a mambo, which is a priest in the voodoo religion or vaudou religion, they're not going to give you a reading, that is, tell you about your past or your present, your future, using tarot cards, because that's not the way they truly divine. Okay. They may be giving you a reading, but it's not that spiritual reading that you're looking for. So, and that, I'll speak from my culture, my religion in particular. If you're going to get a reading in the Isheshe or Lukumi system or the Ifa system, and somebody pulls out a deck of tarot cards and they start shuffling them and they're like, I'm reading you from this, that is not that. That's not the traditional way to do it. It's not even the new way to do it. No reputable priest or priestess that I know of would ever do a divination or a reading using tarot cards saying that it comes from the Orishas or the Loa or any other African deity. It don't work like that. I'm going on the record. Don't send me no bad juju or energy, but I'm just saying, I got to keep it real. I want to protect you all, especially people who are interested in traditional African spiritual systems. Know that, again, they're very separate and distinct. So because someone practices, let's say, Santeria, does not also mean that they practice Vodun or Voodoo, does not mean that they practice candomblé necessarily. There are similarities, but also very big differences. Okay. It is possible for the people to be initiated into one or more belief systems, however, but it's up to you to do your due diligence and do your research. Okay. But back to this movie. So Lisa Bonet is called a mambo. They say that she's been a mambo or a priestess since she was 13 years old. Okay, cool. We still don't really know what that means in this film because they don't go deep into it. It is all from the eyes of the observer, the uninformed observer. That's what it's truly from that perspective, the uninformed observer. The uninformed observer who's just witnessing something and they don't know what's going on. So in one of the most powerful, vivid scenes of the film, you have Lisa Bonet, who is dancing in a circle of people. Thank you so much, Mans Melanin. So you have people dancing in a circle at night with drums, okay? And folks are just dancing wildly to the drums. And we don't know what's going on because, again, we're looking from the eyes of Harold Angel. What the hell is going on? We're clearly looking at some sort of ritual, and they're dancing around the fire. And all these people are just doing these disparate and somewhat desperate dance moves in this film. And Lisa Bonet gets a chicken and she puts it over her head and she's dancing with the chicken, and then she slits the chicken's throat and the blood drips all over her. And then she goes into this sort of orgiastic or orgasmic spasm with the chicken blood dancing all over her. Then she jumps on the person who was in front of her. I think it was a female, it might have been a male, and she starts writhing all over them. Baby, what are we saying? What are we saying? So if you put this in the film, this is what people are going to think happens at a quote unquote voodoo ritual. Baby, I've been to a lot of different rituals in my lifetime. A lot. I can truly say I haven't been to a technically really voodoo ritual, Vodun, but I grew up in the religion or the spiritual system that is called Ifa, or that is called Lukumi. And I ain't never seen none of that. None of that. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because you can tell in the film that there was not due diligence done. You can tell that they didn't consult anyone who practices this religion because it was just anyone that practices the voodoo religion. You can tell they didn't consult anyone because it's just an amalgamous group of Black folks just sort of dancing wildly to some drums, any type of drum, by the way, just drums, and they just dancing wildly. And then Lisa Bonet, she gonna slit the chicken's neck, the blood just falls all over her, and she just going crazy, and her shirt is kind of coming open. It's very sexual. And she she gets on the ground, then they cut back to her, and now she's writhing or riding someone sexually with her clothes on in this ritual. If there are any practitioners of voodoo out there, that traditional belief system, somebody tell me, am I right or am I wrong? What are we doing here? And like I said, it's not like they were looking for veracity. You can tell it was definitely done for um, the male gaze. Okay. Yes, thank you, Rob. He said the Gede are very sexual and dance in nature, so I can see where they got the misunderstanding. Yes, but even with that, even with that, um, let's say this: we have to, when we talk about dancing being sexual, are we looking at it from a Western point of view, from a Christian sort of ethos? Because in some of these different because even if we talk about in some forms of Christianity, drums are considered evil. There's no drumming in the church. There are some Christian sects or denominations that don't allow drums of any kind, or certain types of songs, because they consider that to be something that is sexual, something that can bring out other spirits. Okay. So when we look at this so-called ceremony that our protagonist, Harry Angel, is observing, it's definitely from his point of view. Everything looks very sexual. It looks wild. It looks untamed. It looks as if people are just doing whatever they feel. And one thing I do understand about African spirit-based spiritual systems that I have observed, that I've been a part of, and things like that, is that, baby, there is an order, just like in the Catholic Church. And I hate to do these comparisons, but if I don't, people act like they don't understand. When you go to your church and you walk through the door, there's a certain protocol. There's a way that we greet people. There's a place for the elders to sit. There's the room is set up a certain way. There is a quote unquote master or mistress of ceremonies. It's not just wild, just untamed, just we do whatever we want at any moment, or people just get up and talk at any moment. There's an appointed time for everything. And that's what this film is lacking, right? It's just kind of wild, just, well, we all going crazy. Now we all start vibrating and shaking. And then she talks about later on in the film that he asks about her child's father. Now in the film, Lisa Bonet plays a 17-year-old. Her son is easily 3 or 4 years old in this film. Okay. He asked, well, what about the child's father? She says, I don't know him. He's basically a child of the gods. I was chevalier, which she says means mounted. I tried to do some research on that. I know the French term chevalier, the actual French term refers to someone who is distinguished, okay, usually a distinguished gentleman. But in relation to voodoo, which they claimed she was a priest of, pardon me, I didn't see that term necessarily, but I do know the term being mounted by spirits. So in the film, she says that basically she got pregnant by the gods. And that's why she got pregnant. And quote unquote, it was the best fuck I ever had. Okay. Okay. Deep, right? That's deep. Why is it deep? Let's talk about that. It's the other Black people in the film are very secondary, ancillary. They are not main characters. They are the help, or they're the entertainment. They're the help or they're the entertainment. You do have one Black woman in the film who owns a shop, what someone might call a botanica, where they sell herbs and different things, spiritual needs for people who practice different religions, right? Different African-based religions. And he was going there to buy High John Conqueror root, which is something that I know that people use for different reasons for healing. And he goes there. Now that Black woman, she wasn't playing with him. And she kind of let the other people in the shop know, like, we don't answer the we're not answering all of his questions because she knew something was going on. Okay. But everybody else, but that scene in and of itself was maybe a minute, 30 seconds, maybe 90 seconds. Everybody else who was Black in the film was an entertainer, and they had some scenes and stuff like that, or the help, right? The only prominent Black character that we had was Lisa Bonet. And Lisa Bonet is portrayed as, she stands out amongst the Black people because she's clearly mixed race. And she does say her father is this character, Johnny Favorite, that the detective is looking for. So her father in the film is a white man. She is the object of his sexual desire. She is also very clearly, they are flirting with one another. And all of her clothing, especially around her breasts, is very thin. It's very flimsy. It's always giving you a sort of peekaboo moment. Another thing that stands out to me about her performance, which it was okay, but everybody else in this film has an accent. Lisa has no accent. None. Like, it's like, what happened to and if you've been to New Orleans or you've been to Louisiana, you know they got an accent. When I was first there, I'm telling you, I thought I was somewhere in the Caribbean, right? I couldn't even understand half of what people were saying to me. And then I had to tell people, oh, I'm not from here. And they said, oh, baby, okay. Yeah, she not here. She not from here, huh? Okay. All right, baby. Mm-hmm. They have their own way of speaking. Okay. So, in a very heavy accent in some areas, Lisa Bonet had no accent. She was just sort of plunked down in the middle of this group of Black people. And again, she stands out because she's supposed to be the beauty. And who's the beauty? Of course, she is the mulatto, the mixed race woman. She is what people would call nowadays the exotic. Okay. And she has this little boy who also appears to be mixed race, who we later find out is apparently the child of the devil, because his eyes glows like Lucifer's eyes. Lucifer's eyes glow. The little boy's eyes glow at the very end, which says essentially that little boy is the sire of the devil. So again, conflating Black people with the devil, Black traditional spiritual practices with the devil. There is one scene that does take place. There are two scenes that take place that aren't of the devil necessarily. One, when he is in New York and he sees a church door open, and you see two Black nuns in white habits sitting, reading what appear to be the Bible. And they're reading, and he comes through the door and he stands in the doorway. He looks at them, and an elevator in the distance opens. An old-fashioned elevator opens, and it kind of beckons him to come in, and he backs away and leaves. Now, was the elevator supposed to go up or down? But he had a choice at that moment. Harold Angel decides, I'm not getting in that elevator. Okay. Then you have another scene later in the film when he's in New Orleans. He appears in Lucifer meets him in a Catholic church. So it seems to me that, and the thing, let me explain this to you all. As a filmmaker, these things aren't random. You don't just randomly have the devil meeting someone in the Catholic church. It is a statement, okay? All filmmakers have a point of view. And if we're talking about this film being adapted from a book, it'll be interesting to find out whether or not that scene was in the book, where the devil meets Harold Angel in the church. Because it's definitely saying that the devil is not afraid of the church, even though he kept telling him that, oh, please be respectful. We're in a church. Shh, you don't want to talk like that. We're in the church. And Harold Angel says, man, fuck that. I don't care that we in the church. Which tickles Lucifer. Of course, he's tickled by that statement. But they're meeting in a church, which implies that the devil is very powerful. So he can stand up even to quote unquote straight laced Christian ideology. Even in the face of that, the devil is strong. But in the film, what stands out to me, if we talk about this in relation to African traditional spirituality or Black spirituality, it is definitely all conflated with the devil. Okay. There's a scene where Pastor John, from the beginning of the film, the one who was talking about wealth and everything else, they definitely like have him being paraded through the streets, kind of like that quote unquote golden calf. And then Harold Angel comes breaking through their parade and it knocks Pastor John to the ground, this quote unquote false idol. It is very, very symbolic of that. Very symbolic of that. And so Brandon says these types of films have a tendency to portray anything considered foreign or exotic to the white Christian experience as a form of deviancy. And you're absolutely correct. This is why I loved having that kid in class. Can you believe it? This is why I loved it. Okay, because that is what I'm talking about. Anything that is not of this white Christian experience is considered demonic, devilish, dark arts, and it sort of mixes them all in the pot together. Astrology, tarot, palm reading, voodoo, hoodoo. And by the way, this month is also Hoodoo Heritage Month. And I just want to let you know that hoodoo and voodoo, different things. Similar, but different things. Do your research. Do your research. Okay. I'm not going to educate you about the difference of that, but I want you to do your research. Okay. And a lot of times when people talk about hoodoo or voodoo being practiced in New Orleans or in Louisiana, they like to attribute it to the Haitians who immigrated to Louisiana after the Haitian Revolution. However, there were already thousands of Africans living in Louisiana, enslaved, who were already practicing their traditional belief systems. So you can't just attribute that to Haitians coming over. We would have here in the United States, in Louisiana, there would have already been a practice going on. Okay, there would have been practice in that. And we talk about in the United States, especially as even when we talk about it outside of the context of Louisiana, we talk about African traditional spirituality and we say how much we've lost. And it is true. A lot of things have been lost, but you also kept a lot. There are a lot of things that we do culturally as Black people that harken back to our ancestral roots. Whenever you stop and pour out a little liquor for your homies that ain't here no more, you're pouring a libation. You're pouring out a libation in reverence to your dead friends, your dead relatives. That's something you can go on the continent of Africa and you can see that every day. That's cultural retention. That's cultural retention. Okay, those are the ways that we express, and that's but one example. Another example that we do, we take care of in the household. We might have our parents' picture or a great grandparents' picture hanging up in the house, right? You don't let it get moldy. You don't get dusty. You put it in a place of reverence in your home. Why? Because you revere them, you honor them. And though it may not be an altar, those things, again, cultural retention, ancestral retention. You didn't lose every single thing. Okay? On your grandmother's birthday, when you make her favorite foods and you make a plate and you made a set a plate to the side for Big Mama, or you go on ahead and make that food, what do you think you're doing? This is in reverence of your ancestors. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not here to proselytize and tell you need to do this or you need to do that. What I'm simply pointing out is that we have that cultural and spiritual retention within us. We may not call it what our ancestors called it, but it's still there. And when we look at films like Angel Heart, and next week we'll probably look at a different film. I'm thinking about doing Serpent in the Rainbow or The Believers. That was one of my favorites too as a kid. You have to kind of look at the symbology, the things that are picked up on, the things that are promoted or put out front as being a part of these spiritual religious practices. Because a lot of times Hollywood will take one thing and they're going to exaggerate it. They're going to exaggerate it. They're going to conflate it with something else. Like I said, voodoo ain't got nothing to do with getting your chart read or your chart done astrologically or having your palms read or tarot card. It just doesn't have anything to do with it. It's different. It's not bad. It's not good. It's neither. It's just different. Okay. So we don't have to find that. Another thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was in the film, Harold Angel was sick. He was afraid of chickens, live chicken. He didn't like it. And I have to say that in a lot of the spiritual practices that I've seen and observed that are traditional African spiritual practices or derivations of, chicken is a part of it. Okay, you will have sacrifice of animals. Today is Rosh Hashanah. I want to say it's either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. A lot of the Orthodox people also clean themselves with chickens to remove sins from the bodies, to symbolically or actually, depending on how you believe, remove sins and negative energy and spirits from your body. And then those chickens are sacrificed. Okay, look it up. I mean, it's just the truth. So in a lot of traditional African belief systems, you do have the sacrifice of animals. And I know that here in the West, I see a lot of sacrifice of animals like chickens, sometimes a goat. And sometimes those animals are then shared within the community. They're either cooked and shared with the community, or the meat is given to different members of the community, again, to cook and share within the household. And sometimes those things are also just kind of thrown away, depending on what that ceremony was for. But in this film, we don't know what the chicken was for. We know the chicken lost his whole life so Lisa Bonet could dance around in his blood half naked and writhe on the ground and grind up on somebody. That's what it looks like according to Angel Heart. Okay, the uninformed observer. So that's the biggest thing with Hollywood films, is that they're uninformed. They don't do any real research. I did see that the film had a choreographer named Louis Falco, and I'd be interested in knowing if Louis Falco actually did any research on dances of voodoo, because there are different there's different styles and techniques of dance. I'm looking at Falco's biography, and yeah, he's the son of Southern Italian immigrants, born and raised on the Manhattan Lower East Side. So New York definitely has a very multicultural background, and it looks like he danced in the Jose Limon Dance Company. But again, I state and I stress, when did you study Haitian dance? When did you study the dance of voodoo? Because there are different deities have different steps that they do, different choreography, and that choreography is significant and it means different things. He did also choreograph Fame, the motion picture. I mean, it's very, yeah, that's kind of all over the place, right? That's just, uh, This also reminds me of, I think it was American Horror Story season 3 with the witches, where Angela Bassett plays Marie Laveau, and she's doing her rituals, and you got the snakes, and you got the ooh, and the eyes rolling back in the head, and all of this stuff. All of that is for television. It's really mainly for television. It's mainly to incite. It's to provoke. It's to shock viewers. Will you go to one of these ceremonies and see something maybe similar? Yes. However, understand that there are prescribed dances for different deities, for different ceremonies. There's prescribed drumming for different deities, for different ceremonies. It's not just willy-nilly, everybody get on the drums and everybody just start doing this. That's lazy. And I'm calling my fellow filmmakers out about that. Lazy. Do I think that the rest of the film is really pretty good and holds up to cinematic standards? Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful cinematography, great performances, generally speaking, even though Lisa had no accent and apparently just came out of nowhere. Didn't seem to fit in anywhere. But yeah, I think the film holds up in that way. But again, it lets us down when it gets to veracity, when it gets to authenticity of that voodoo experience. And they really never make a distinction between, I mean, it looks like voodoo, but it also could be hoodoo. It could be a little bit of everything. It's just whatever white America thinks that these things are. So it doesn't give it respect. It doesn't give it veracity, and it conflates it with devil worship. And one thing I know is that it's not devil worship. It's just not. In some of these belief systems, there is no devil in their pantheon of gods or in their system of belief. You did something bad, you did something horrible, you did that. Not a devil. A devil didn't make you do that. You did that. Well, they say it's a malevolent spirit or something like that. Yes, but they don't worship it and they don't give it. In some cases, a name is not necessarily given to it. But I mean, in some belief systems, traditional African belief systems, there really isn't a devil character, as we would call it, as we relate it to Christianity. Okay. And so therefore, there is no concept of hell either in some of these belief systems. Okay. You don't get your justice. You don't go to hell for the bad things you've done in some of these belief systems after you die. You may receive, you reap what you sow in some cases right here on this plane of existence in your lifetime. Okay. Now, are there any questions? Because it's 7:58 and I feel like we was doing the darn thing. Did I cover everything? I think so. With the film, if you have questions, if you like this sort of content, by all means, please let me know. I will be posting this content. If you missed it tonight, or if you want to share this content with others, it's going to be on my YouTube channel, and that's Kamili121, Kamili 121 on YouTube. So that's where it's going to live forever in case you miss it and you want to share it with someone. If you, in fact, like I said, you want to comment, you thought about something, you see the film and something else occurs to you, by all means, let me know. Hey, let me know if this time of day and this day actually works for you as well. I chose Thursday at 7 o'clock because it works for me. If there's a different time for you all who are viewing this, please let me know. Next week, I will announce what film we're going to be talking about, and hopefully you'll have a chance to go ahead and watch it before we have our discussion. I want to thank you all for joining us. I know that we definitely had some practitioners of different African traditional belief systems on here and those derivatives. If you have an issue with anything that was said here, keep it positive. Comments are appreciated. We don't do negative over here, though, so I don't want to block nobody. All right. And know that I have nothing but respect and reverence for all of you. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. Have a wonderful night.